Even fire dispatch copy. Threes on scene or medium size single story residential
Welcome back
structure.
to the next episode of the Leaderline podcast. Today in studio we have Chief Fields and Chief Lauser, and a few topics we're going to get into. All right, so the first topic is we've had a few emails that have come out recently, like exception reports that have come from different company officers and some from battalion chiefs discussing response times. And so I don't know that everybody necessarily sees all of those emails, but there's definitely been this topic about increasing response times. And so we wanted to kind of ask you, Chief Lauser, what are your thoughts on what you're seeing? What are the trends? And where do you think we're headed?
Yeah, so I've seen the emails, and obviously it's unfortunate to get response times like that, especially on high acuity calls like those. And they're good to see. Obviously, we want to see them. They provide some good context for us, and they provide like a real life representation of what we see in the numbers. We would like to think those are outliers, and per the data that we see, they are outliers to have extended response times like that. But we do see the trends. We know where we're going. We're getting bigger and busier. And I guess the one thing I do want everyone to know is that we are aware of what's happening. We get a lot of data on our response times, on every type of response time. We get automated, monthly reports, sometimes weekly reports on, call processing times and turnout times and travel times, ERF arrivals. So everything on the fire side. We get reports on CON times for 7 and 11 a minute thresholds, and for every single area, we can select areas and look at specific areas. So we get a ton of data, and so we know where we're at, we know where the challenges are, and that drives a lot of our, what we advocate for in the budget. We get reports on like commitment factors, which are, it's like a formula that takes into account how much time you're actually committed to a call, from beginning to end, including your out of service time after the call's over. And so we track things like that, commitment factors, and times like those help us make decisions on when we put up like the high demand units.
Right.
And, we look for stress in the system and in specific areas. So we look to help certain areas, or we know during a certain time of year, we know the commitment factor is going to go up and it's going to drive response times down. So we try to supplement the system with some help. So we are watching, and we try to do what we can to help take the stress out of the system with things like, Medic 7 coming up or Medic 13 in years past, and advocating for, personnel in the budget.
Sure.
So I do want everyone to know we're always watching, and and that's to try to eliminate calls like what we've seen where it's a 15-minute response time on a gunshot or a stroke victim. We don't ever want to see that. I don't think there's any way to ever completely eliminate those, though. I mean, those will happen. I mean, there's going to be...
Yeah, there's always going to be outliers.
Yeah, even if we had all the staff and we ever wanted, you will have some anomalies at some point where one particular area of the city just gets a wave of simultaneous calls, and now someone's waiting an extended period. It will always happen, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, our job is to try to eliminate those to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too, because it's one thing I noticed just coming up here and getting to look at some of the data and looking at Tracy, the quantity, quality, the depth and breadth of some of the reports. Like, I didn't realize it being on the floor, just how data driven we are, like how many actual different reports, different numbers that we look at, that the organization looks at in terms of commitment factor or response times, and then even what goes into response times. To your point about call processing times, travel times, like we see the end result of just response time, but even that number is broken down further into how long did it take dispatch to get the information out, how long did it take us to travel there, how long did it take the guys to get to the truck, and so all of that stuff is factored in, which actually, Chief, no, it's not on here, but that brings up the G2 dispatching system, right? So we're hoping to see another cut down on call processing.
Yeah, the dispatchers will no longer have to say anything to the crews at the station. It'll be all automated, and we're hoping to knock about 20 seconds or so.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, and in the bay, it'll have a countdown clock. And
Oh,
so
really?
I'll just mention it right now. I'm gonna have some kind of competition, whoever is the fastest.
Sure.
To get them on average, and maybe I'll cook them a tri-tip dinner or
There you go.
something. I'll come out and reward them for getting out the truck quickest. So make it a competition.
Yeah.
And safely get
For
out
sure.
to the truck. But so I'm thinking in another month or two,
We'll be
we
up.
should be getting the final pieces in.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
all the equipment will be in by then, and then there's some training that goes to dispatch, and with our command officers and how the equipment works. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Back to the original point, though, I think, looking at those reports is fascinating. You can really make good decisions based off of that data because the data is so good.
Yeah, and it helps us make our argument. So it's not, as much as the exception reports help because they provide some
Context.
real life context to the numbers, we need numbers to make significant additions to the budget, right?
Sure.
We can't just use anecdotes. We have to back it up with real data that shows that something is needed. We can prove it.
Right.
So the data is so important.
All right. The next topic on here is, and it goes hand in hand with this because, the growth aspect of it, but it's the third-party consultant. And so, Chief, you want to give an update on what we've seen, where we're at?
We've had 2 visits by the consultant. One was like a pretty brief of about a month and a half ago, where we had him here for a couple of days, and
Right.
he really wanted to meet with John and myself, and he wanted to meet with the city manager, finance director, get the lay of the land, and get some timelines set for his mid-review
Sure.
study, so that we can make some budget decisions and trying to, program more people or whatever
Right.
we're going to do. As he came again about last week, and he spoke to a lot of people. John took the consultant who was doing our facilities,
Okay.
and they spent a day looking at everything that we have. So doing a really comprehensive overview of the whole department and
Right.
operations, and then talking to all the staff. There's a few staff still in the city and internally that he needs to talk to. They'll be doing Zoom meetings with, and so far it's been a really good process, and we're hoping that it'll be lay a good framework for moving forward on how we'll move our department forward.
Yeah. And so to that point, the third-party consultant looked at everything, right? I mean, a little bit of went to dispatch, looked at the operation responses, but also looked at things like facilities, how our buildings look, how our apparatus looks, right? In addition to just PSD and EMS, and really is getting like a global view of the entire organization as a whole.
Yeah, I told every staff member that I could, if there's something you're struggling with or something you can't do, you're trying to do, let them know.
Sure.
Air the dirty laundry so that we can become better because of it. It's not a failure. We're not failing. We're trying to get better, and the only way to do that is not paper over
Sure.
things that we're struggling with, and we shouldn't be prideful about it. We need to be reflective, honest, and say, hey, these are the areas where we're not meeting what we'd like to be doing, because there's a lot of things that we'd like to be doing that we can't because
Right.
of staffing. So especially in admin,
For sure.
so.
And they do take a look at everything that impacts YFT. So they obviously look at everything in YFT, but I mean, they talk to the city manager and IT director and finance director. And, we were down at Fleet and, met with the public works director and our fleet manager there to go through the process on how we do maintenance on our trucks and everything. I mean, they take a deep look at everything that we do in the department and everybody that affects us.
Yeah, that was interesting. One of the questions he asked me was, if you ask the guys how often their trucks are in the shop, like, what do you think the answer would be? Which I thought was an interesting question. Just like, what's the general feeling about that? And it's such a random, but it just kind of shows to I think the depth and the breadth of what they're really trying to gather is, are you efficient with your apparatus? Is the maintenance getting done? All the way to how long does it take to dispatch a call, to, what's happening in PSD or EMS. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the results of that come back. Along the same lines, I wanted to talk a little bit about the GIS study. So Local 1234 asked the IFF. The IFF has a couple services: municipal financial analysis. They look at budgeting for the government, and then they also have a GIS system that is similar, a little different than what the third-party consultant does. It just looks at stationed location, response times, ERF, how long does it take to get fire trucks to scenes. And so myself and John Dunbar, Chavez just sat through the revision, the final edit of it. And so we're hoping to have the results of that published here in the next month or so and be able to get that out to everybody to see, and then be able to compare that with, other documents that are going to come out and what we think, what our road network looks like. And so I think that'll be interesting to kind of pair that up with the third party consultant and be able to compare and contrast. All right. So the next thing, excuse me. Another big change for the Yuma Fire Department is division chiefs. And I know we've announced it, the department announced it a few months back. Seems like we've seen some progress on it. We're moving in the right direction. Chief, you want to talk a little bit about the division chief change?
Sure. Yeah, it's a done deal. It's happening. So it's you're going to see a position job announcement go out here very shortly. And the first time around, and I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, the first time we do this, it has to consist of the existing battalion chiefs.
Sure.
But going forward, you can potentially be qualified as a captain if you meet all the criteria. But anyway, you're going to see the job announcement go out soon, and we'll be doing a couple of different interview sessions, a panel interview and a chief's interview, and that'll be happening in early to mid-December. And then hopefully we have everything in place in time to make the changes, which should happen officially towards the very end of December, beginning of January. We'll do the official changes, and you'll see, we're still sorting out the details on, there's going to be some personnel adjustments. The battalion chiefs will go non-exempt, so we'll have to generate some personnel action forms for that. We have to sort out some of the details, like, how does it affect them if they turn non-exempt in the middle of an FLSA pay cycle. So there's some questions we have to HR about how that's going to work, but those are just ironing out the last of the details. It's going through. It's going to happen. Yeah. And hopefully we'll see it, be officially in place early January.
And this is a big change. This is and really beneficial to a lot of different people in a lot of different areas. But to recap some of the highlights, battalion chief will be an associate's degree level position now. It'll be overtime eligible, like you said. And then division chief is now bachelor's required. But company officers can go from captain to division chief if you meet certain criteria.
Correct.
So now you have two pathways from captain into a chief officer spot, depending. Correct. And then the rotations are done.
Yeah, rotations at the chief level will be done, which will make the rotations at the captain level more important. Sure. If you want your opportunity to get into an administrative position for whatever reason, you need to do it at the captain level. And that's going to be especially important if you are a captain who is considering trying to get to a division chief level.
Sure.
If you're trying to make that big jump, we are really going to have to see that we have to feel comfortable that the administrative side of the house.
Right.
And so that's going to make something like a rotation in one of the administrative divisions really important. Yeah.
Right. All right. And the last item that we've got here is the LMS, the pending LMS and potential changes to the pay plan that are coming up. So Chief Field, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so this is a big deal. The acting city manager, he had made an emphasis to make sure he touches the pay for the city. He meets with employees every 6 months. So his big deal is he didn't want to let us get behind.
Right.
Well, they just did a review and found that there's a percentage that we're down. So he's really, really pushing that we make sure this next fiscal year budget that we implement has the labor market adjustment.
Okay.
And it takes care of the makes us competitive.
Sure.
Keeps us competitive, so we're not going to fall behind. So, and it kind of limits us on how many people we can ask for overall in the city. So that's some of the issues that he's kind of weighing right now to make sure we don't jeopardize pay for everybody in the city. So
okay.
That's one of the things that he's working on. The numbers aren't out yet, like what
we're looking at.
Yeah, what we're looking at, but we're still getting a rate. We're already programmed for a raise in the adjustment in January.
Right.
And then if everything goes through, it'll be the June and then probably in October. So it'd be like a split. that's what we're led to believe. So
Okay.
everything's still up in the air. So I don't want to really give numbers
Sure.
or dates or whatever, but that's the kind of the framework of it.
I
So,
see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be on the lookout for an update on that, on where the labor market survey ends up and what the pay scales will adjust to. Well, great. Anything else for roundtable? before we
Yeah,
cut it
I'd like to do a shout out for Leo for taking the academy on, and I mean he went to 40-hour and
off? Right.
missed out probably some overtime and other things, and he also took advantage of working on the trip with the folks that build the new fire truck, and
Oh, really?
went back to Appleton. So he did all that while at the same time as doing his
RTO.
RTO stuff. So I want to say thank you for him for sacrificing.
Awesome. Chief Lauser, anything for roundtable? Anything to add?
I have two things. So one, I do want to acknowledge Ryan Axett. He's been a temporary guest of
Right.
ours and admin
D
for
crew.
a while. Yeah, and every time someone goes on light duty, we give him some assignment. But he's been phenomenal up there.
Really?
And he helped me out a ton with a lot of the homework I had to do for the third party consultant. We had to fill out like facility worksheets, and they were really in depth. It was like every year it was built in acreage it sat on, and square footage of every single room in every single station. It was a lot of work, and he did a ton of it.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
it was like visiting stations and going through building plans and figuring out square footage of bunk rooms and bathrooms and offices. I mean, it was a ton of work, and he did it. And he's been helping out PSD a lot.
Right.
And, like, great attitude. So anyway, I appreciate all the help he's given us. And then Medic 7, I did want to mention that really quick.
Oh, yeah.
I put the email out yesterday about it. I've had a few questions about it because I kind of, left it on a cliffhanger on my email a little bit. Medic 7 is going up this Monday. We have Peter Franks and Aldo Milan will be on that unit.
Nice.
And it's going to run like it always ran as Medic 13. We moved it to Station 7 this year because, 7 is the fastest growing area, and it's the area that's kind of dragging down our CON times more than anything else, any other area. So we moved it out there, but it will still function the same. It'll be housed out of Station 7, but the idea is they will still move around to kind of fill in the vacant areas around the city, just like Medic 13 did.
Okay.
And then I kind of left that too. There's a strong chance that come April that unit will stay up,
Okay.
and it may even stay up in that manner indefinitely until we can get some permanent staffing for Medic 7.
Okay.
So I mean, we've just seen that's how much of a need we have for that unit, that we feel like we're maybe doing a disservice by bringing the unit down. So there's a good chance that's going to happen. If it does happen, we'll still probably rotate another pair of a medic and an EMT onto that unit.
Sure. Open it back up again.
Yeah, and we have a couple of people that put in. We actually had 4 people that put in for it this time. So, if they want it the second time, they would probably be offered
Sure.
to them if they want to do it for the next rotation. And then we may continue to do that until we can get the
Till we can staff
staffing
it.
that we need for the permanent staffing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's no secret. Station 7's times, that area's exploded with housing and subdivision, building, and the need for a unit out there. I'm sure Medic 5 will be really appreciative of having a backup unit out there.
Well, and
pretty
it's
quickly.
the ripple effect too.
Right.
So right now, when Medic 5 goes out, Medic 3
Gets
is running
pulled.
in their area. So with Medic 7 up, Medic 3 won't have to do that. And when 3 doesn't leave, then 2
doesn't
one
go.
doesn't have to go
Right.
cover. Yeah, so it's a whole big ripple effect, and it's needed. I
For
mean,
sure.
The numbers are clear on it. I mean, there's no arguing the numbers. 7 is busy, and 7 for the CON times is killing us. Because the engine, for anyone that doesn't know, our CON times only count for the medic unit's arrival.
Right.
We can have an engine on scene in 10 seconds, and it doesn't matter for the CON.
And that's 7 minutes and 20 seconds, 90% of the time, or 7
It's
flat.
7 flat,
7 flat.
90% of the time. 11 minutes, 99% of the
99%
time.
of the time.
Those are our CON numbers, and we don't meet them in 7's area, obviously, not for a medic unit. With Station 7 there now, Engine 7 can meet those times a majority of the time now,
Right.
but it doesn't do anything for our CON unless Medic 7 is out there.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll get this thing out, and thanks for listening to the Leaderline podcast. If you have any ideas for topics for future episodes, email the Leaderline podcast group, and we'll see you on the next one.